a Broadway segment we have here at Broadway News. We're your hosts, Mackenzie Hedrick and Nadia Watch Jackson, here to bring you the buzz.
Was a show that's been creating a lot of buzz in the musical community. Though it's become pretty popular, not many people know the true story behind this musical masterpiece.
That's right, Mackenzie. The musical The Scottsboro Boys has a pretty interesting criminal case connected to it.
Today, we are here to give you all the details you need to understand this tragic story that changed the lives of 9 African American boys almost 100 years ago.
All right, Mackenzie, so you and I both know the details of this story.
That's right.
But I think it would probably be best to start from the beginning. What do you think?
I agree.
Okay, so this story starts on March 25th, 1931. A group of 9 African American males were riding through Alabama from Tennessee in search of a job. Now, on this train, along with them were 7 white males and 2 white females, all riding what they call a gondola car, which is an open-air car on a freight train.
Now, during this trip, a fight broke out between all of the males. As a result of this altercation, all 7 white males were thrown off the car. Now, the kicker of this story is the word was sent ahead to Alabama, the final destination of the trip, requesting that the African American boys be removed.
So now the train is in Paint Rock, Alabama, and this is where it gets real. The boys are met by a group of sheriffs looking to seize them into custody.
Now, the sheriffs ended up seizing the 9 African American males allegedly involved in the fight, along with 2 other African American males who were not involved in the fight, and 2 white females in the gondola car.
Now, Mackenzie, we keep going on and on about these 2 white females, but who are they?
The 2 women, named Ruby Bates and Victoria Price, were the key people involved in this case. They were the ones that accused the African American males of sexual assault, but it doesn't stop there. Apparently, these 2 women faced charges of homelessness and sexual activity before entering the train. Turns out, they accused the boys just to get out of their own charges.
And their plan worked. When the boys arrived to Alabama, they were met with a mob of angry citizens looking for justice for the women. The mob was so intense that the sheriff insisted on calling in the militia to contain the crowd. That same day, the males were detained and transferred to Gadsden, Alabama, because of the concern of their safety.
The boys were then brought back to Scottsboro for their arraignment on March 31st, 1931. The boys pled not guilty. They were indicted that same day.
Mackenzie, we've been talking a lot about the boys, but what happened to the girls at this point?
Well, the girls were examined by a doctor, and he found no evidence of sexual assault for either of the girls. Though this information could have easily proven the boys to be innocent, the evidence was overlooked during the trial.
I'm sure many of you are wondering, how was it possible for such a crucial piece of evidence to simply be overlooked? Well, throughout this process, there was speculation that the boys did not receive adequate representation. And as a result of this evidence, like the doctor's discoveries or lack thereof, got swept under the rug.
More on their representation and the trial coming after this short break.
That's me, Dominique, singing my #1 hit, On Hold for You.
For an hour or 2, on hold for you.
You know, I'm not just a pop star. I'm also a human being, and I've suffered from embarrassing back acne for years. You know, when they used to shoot my music videos, they had to digitally remove my entire back, and my arms, and my legs. I looked terrible and I sued everyone. It was embarrassing. Not since I've been using Baby Got Backney Vanishing Cream.
Baby Got Backney works by destroying blemishes, pores, and all surrounding skin.
I like clear skin and that's the truth. All your sisters just look uncool. You give your man a heart attack 'cause you got acne on your back.
But baby got back knee.
Live back knee free.
Welcome back to Broadway Buzz, a weekly news segment we have here at Broadway News. We are your hosts, Mackenzie Hedrick and Nadia Watts-Jackson. Today we are talking about the Scottsboro Boys, a musical based on a true story. When we left, we had just started talking about their inadequate legal representation at the trial court. So let's jump right back into it.
At this time, according to Alabama law, where the trial was taking place, the appointment of counsel for capital felony cases is required. The Scottsboro Boys were not given this required representation. In fact, a cited conversation from the trial court judge regarding the issue of counsel at the arraignment says this: but no counsel had been employed aside from a statement made by the trial judge several days during the conversation immediately preceding the trial. The record does not disclose when or under what circumstances an appointment of counsel was made or who was appointed.
That's right, Mackenzie. Not only was the proper form of counsel withheld from the Scottsboro Boys, but the quality of representation they received was also inadequate.
Their attorneys were not only adequately prepared to defend their young clients, and they were not adequately prepared, and they admitted to the judge that they had barely met or spoken with them before the trial began.
Despite the major issues with the boys' counsel, the judge set the trial date to April 6, 1931, only 6 days after the indictment. That morning, an attorney from Tennessee came to represent the boys. Stephen R. Roddy appeared in court to represent the defendants. The reason behind a Tennessee attorney coming to represent them was that no member of the county bar wanted to defend the boys. Roddy had been sent from Tennessee, the state from which the freight train had departed. The judge authorized a local attorney, Milo Moody, to help Roddy in his cases.
The state requested a severance of the cases, essentially trying to claim separately each claim instead of all together in one trial. And the defendants were tried in 3 different groups in 3 separate trials. Each of the trials was completed in a single day.
At the time, under Alabama law, the punishment for a rape conviction ranged from 10 years in prison to a sentence of death, and these punishments were to be fixed by the jury.
The jury ended up deciding for each of the defendants, except for the youngest, a 13-year-old, Roy Wright, that they should be sentenced to death.
When there was a request for the case to be retried, the trial court judge overruled motions for new trials and upheld the jury's sentences. The Supreme Court of Alabama affirmed the convictions and sentences.
And it doesn't end there. Next up, we'll be talking about how this case continues to move through the court systems.
Welcome back to Broadway Buzz, a weekly news segment we have here at Broadway News. We're your hosts, Mackenzie Hedrick and Nadia Watts-Jackson. Today we've been talking about the Scottsboro Boys, a musical based on a true story. When we left, the Supreme Court of Alabama had just affirmed the convictions.
We know the journey of this case through the different courts can get confusing, so let's take the next few moments to break it down.
The case originally started in a trial court in Alabama, where the jury sentenced all of the suspects to death except for one. The case then traveled to the appellate court, which in this case was the Alabama Supreme Court. In the state of Alabama, the Supreme Court can review decisions rendered by any appellate and trial court. So in this case, they reviewed and affirmed the trial court's decision.
Now from there, the case took a turn and began to pick up some traction as it was taken all the way to the United States Supreme Court. The issue that the court was trying to address was, did the trials violate the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment?
The United States Supreme Court reversed the decision of the Alabama Supreme Court and held that under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, states must provide counsel to all defendants charged with a capital felony. This was made in a 7-2 decision.
The 7 justices who voted in the majority were Justices Hughes, Van Deventer, Brandeis, Sutherland, Stone, Roberts, and Cardozo. They voted in favor of the Scottsboro Boys because they felt the trials denied due process. In addition to the fact that the defendants were not given responsible time or opportunity to secure appropriate counsel.
The two justices that voted in the minority were Justices McReynolds and Butler. They voted against the Scottsboro Boys because they felt that due process was met and that the defendants had adequate time and opportunity to get adequate counsel.
Well, that was all we had here today at Broadway News. Thank you for tuning in to today's Broadway Buzz featuring the Scottsboro Boys. Here are some photos and related images to the original Scottsboro 9.
Join us next week where we'll be talking about the impact Legally Blonde had on the judicial system. We are your hosts, Mackenzie Hedrick and Nadia Watts Jackson. Good night.